People keep looking at me.
Good, that's the point.
No, I mean really looking, like they recognize something.
It's the dress. I told you.
214 crystals. I counted them in the cab. What's the award actually for?
Outstanding contribution to public architecture. Every door.
I'd want that. Something like that. Something with your name on it in a room like this.
You have to spend about a decade earning it first.
You think I couldn't?
I think you'd get bored in year 2.
What's happening over there?
Probably someone important arrived late.
Everyone keeps looking at the entrance. Who is that? Who is that?
Someone I used to know.
The dress arrived at the Gala at 8:47 p.m. Floor length. Midnight blue. Hand-stitched at the hem with exactly 214 crystals, because the woman who owned it had counted every single one the night it was finished. The woman wearing it walked through the entrance like she owned the room. She did not own the room. But the woman who did was already inside. And when Camille turned from her conversation and saw that dress moving across the marble floor toward her, she didn't gasp. She didn't freeze. She smiled. The kind of smile that takes years to build. The kind that only arrives after you have already won. This is not a story about a dress. It is a story about what a woman becomes when everything is taken from her, and what happens to the people who took it when she finally shows up to collect. 6 years. That is how long Camille had built quietly. Not loudly. Not visibly. Quietly, the way foundations are laid before anyone sees the building. She had met Marcus at 28. He was confident in the way certain men are confident, not because they have earned it, but because no one has ever told them otherwise. He was handsome. Charming. The kind of man who walked into rooms and immediately assessed who was worth talking to. The first night they met, he had looked at Camille and decided she was. Back then, Camille was a junior architect at a mid-size firm. Talented. Overlooked. The kind of woman whose ideas appeared in presentations she was never invited to deliver. Marcus liked that about her. He liked that she was brilliant but didn't take up too much space. What he did not understand, what he would spend years not understanding, was that Camille wasn't small. She was patient. There is a difference. They moved in together after 8 months. Engaged after 2 years. The wedding was planned for the spring. During those 6 years, Camille worked. Not just at the firm, but on her own. Late nights at the kitchen table. Weekends. Early mornings before Marcus woke up. She had an idea for a sustainable architecture consultancy, a firm that would work specifically with non-profit organizations and public institutions to redesign their spaces at reduced cost without sacrificing quality. Marcus had opinions about that idea. It's a nice passion project, he told her once. But you can't build a real business on charity cases, Camille. You need real clients. She nodded. She kept working. By the time their engagement ended, on a Tuesday evening, with Marcus sitting across from her at their dining table telling her he needed space, that he felt like he couldn't grow next to her, that they wanted different things, Camille's consultancy had secured its 3rd major government contract. She did not tell him that. She listened. She nodded. She packed the things that mattered. Including the dress. She had commissioned it herself from a designer friend 18 months earlier for the annual Meridian Architecture Gala, the most prestigious industry event in the city. She had never attended. Every year she watched from the outside. That dress was her promise to herself that one day she would walk through those doors as something other than someone's guest. She packed it in its garment bag and left. 3 months later Marcus was photographed at a rooftop dinner with Jade. Camille saw the photo on a Tuesday morning. She closed the tab and went back to work. Jade was 24. She had met Marcus at a networking event 6 weeks after Camille left, though later, certain details would suggest the timeline was not exactly that clean. She was beautiful in an obvious way. Loud where Camille was quiet. Expressive where Camille was composed. Marcus found that refreshing. What Jade wanted, and she was honest about this, at least to herself, was access. The dinners. The events. The rooms. Marcus could provide rooms. And for a while, that was enough for both of them. The Meridian Gala invitation arrived at Marcus's address in early October. He had attended twice before, both times with Camille, both times as a +1 to her colleague's table. This year he had been invited through a contact at his firm. He mentioned it to Jade on a Sunday morning. She was already reaching for her phone to plan her outfit before he finished the sentence. A week before the gala, Jade was going through the spare wardrobe in Marcus's apartment, the one he had never fully cleared out after Camille left, looking for a belt she thought she'd left there. She found the garment bag instead. She unzipped it slowly. Midnight blue. Floor length. 214 crystals at the hem. She held it against herself in front of the mirror for a long time. "Whose is this?" she called out to Marcus. A pause from the other room. "Old stuff," he said. "From before." Jade looked at herself in the mirror again. "Can I wear it to the gala?" Another pause. "Sure," Marcus said. He didn't think about it again. The night of the gala arrived cold and clear. The Meridian Foundation had taken over the Grand Callaway Hotel, a building that occupied an entire city block, with a ballroom on the 14th floor that overlooked the skyline. Jade had spent for hours getting ready. The dress fit her almost perfectly. She'd had it taken in slightly at the waist by a seamstress 2 days before, a fact she did not mention to Marcus. She looked stunning. She knew it. Marcus told her 3 times on the way there. They arrived at 8:30. The ballroom was already full: architects, developers, city officials, philanthropists. The kind of room where everyone was important enough that no one was impressed by anyone else. At least not at first. Jade moved through it like she belonged. Marcus introduced her to people. She smiled, laughed, touched his arm. And then she heard it. Not loud. Just a shift. A small ripple of attention moving from somewhere across the room, heads turning, a low murmur, the specific energy of a room adjusting itself around a new presence. Jade turned to see what everyone was looking at. And that is when she saw Camille. Camille had arrived at 8:44. She wore a simple champagne column gown. No crystals. No embellishment. Just clean lines and the kind of confidence that does not require decoration. She moved through the entrance and immediately 3 people came toward her. Not to greet her. To escort her. Because Camille was not attending the Meridian Gala this year. She was being honored at it. The Meridian Foundation's annual award for outstanding contribution to public architecture, given to the individual whose work had most impacted community spaces in the past year, had been awarded to Camille's firm. Her consultancy had redesigned 11 public libraries, 4 community health centers, and a youth education campus in under 36 months. All under budget. All without compromising design integrity. The award was the highest recognition in their industry. Camille had known about it for 2 months. She had told no one except her team. Jade saw her from across the room and felt something she could not immediately name. And then she looked down at the dress she was wearing. And she understood. She touched Marcus's arm. Hard. Marcus. He was mid-sentence with someone. Marcus. He turned. She watched his face change. First confusion. Then recognition. Then something that looked very much like fear. Because Camille had seen them. And Camille had not looked away. The thing about Camille was this. She had imagined this moment before. Not this exact moment. But something like it. Some version of a room where she and Marcus occupied the same air and she had to decide what to do with her face. She had decided, months ago, that she would feel nothing. Not nothing in the broken way. Nothing in the finished way. The way you feel nothing about a bill you've already paid. She looked at Jade for exactly 3 seconds. She took in the dress. The crystals at the hem. The slight alteration at the waist. And then she turned back to the woman she was speaking with, the foundation's director, and continued the conversation without missing a single word. Jade spent the next 40 minutes trying to decide whether to leave. "She saw us," she said to Marcus, her voice low and tight. "I know," he said. "Is that her dress?" A long pause. "It was just sitting in the wardrobe." "Marcus, is it her dress?" "Yes." Jade set her glass down on a passing tray very carefully. "Why do you still have her things?" "I didn't think." "You didn't think?" She looked across the room at Camille, who was now laughing at something, genuinely, fully laughing, surrounded by 5 people who all seemed to be competing for her attention. "Who is she talking to?" Jade asked. "I don't know all of them," Marcus said. "That one on the left runs the city planning office. The woman next to her is on the foundation board, I think." "Why do they all know her?" Marcus didn't answer. Because the honest answer was that he didn't know. He had spent 6 years next to Camille and had somehow never fully understood what she was building. He had seen the late nights, the calls, the contract she mentioned briefly over dinner before he changed the subject. He had never asked the right questions. He was beginning to understand that was a very specific kind of failure. At 9:15, a foundation staff member approached their table. "Excuse me, Mr. Marcus?" Marcus looked up. "I'm so sorry, but we'll need to reseat your table slightly. We have some last-minute adjustments for the ceremony setup." They were moved. Politely, efficiently. From a table with a clear view of the stage to one slightly to the left, partially behind a pillar. Marcus didn't understand why until the ceremony began. The foundation director took the stage at 9:30. The room quieted. She spoke for several minutes about the award, its history, its significance, the caliber of past recipients. And then she said Camille's name. Not as a guest. Not as an attendee. As the recipient. The room responded the way rooms respond when they recognize something real, not polite applause, but the kind that builds, that has weight, that means the people clapping actually know what they're clapping for. Camille walked to the stage from the front of the room. Composed. Unhurried. In champagne, while someone else wore midnight blue. Marcus stared at the stage from behind the pillar. Jade sat very still beside him. The director was listing Camille's accomplishments now, the firm, the contracts, the 11 libraries, the health centers, the youth campus. Numbers. Timelines. Impact assessments. The kind of language that fills a room with a specific understanding of scale. Marcus recognized some of those projects. He had been in the apartment when those calls happened. He had been in the apartment when she stayed up past midnight going over drawings. He had told her more than once that she was overcomplicating things. He sat behind the pillar and listened to a room full of people understand what he had spent 6 years failing to see. Camille spoke for 7 minutes. She did not mention Marcus. She did not mention the past 6 years. She did not look in his direction once. She spoke about her work. About the communities. About what it meant to build spaces for people who had been told their spaces didn't matter. She spoke with the ease of someone who had earned every word. At the end she said, "The most important thing I ever learned about building is this: the structure only holds if the foundation is honest. That applies to everything." She smiled. The room applauded again. She stepped off the stage and was immediately surrounded. At 10:15, Marcus went to find her. He told himself it was just to say hello. Just to be civil. Just because it would be stranger not to. He found her near the windows, the city spread out behind her. She saw him coming. She didn't move. "Camille," he said. "Marcus," she said. A pause that held a great deal inside it. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said. "I know," she said. Another pause. "You look." "Marcus." Her voice was calm. Not cold. "Just finished." I'm going to go back to my table now. He nodded. She turned. And then she stopped. Not because of him. Because Jade was standing 3 feet away, having followed Marcus across the room without him realizing. The two women looked at each other. Jade, in the midnight blue dress, with 214 crystals at the hem, slightly taken in at the waist. Camille, in champagne, with the award in her hand. A long moment. And then Camille said, very quietly, "That dress was made for someone who was going to walk into this room one day and have something to say. I'm glad it finally made it." She looked at Jade for one more second. Then she walked back to her table. She did not look back. Jade left the gala at 10:40. Not in anger. Not in tears. In the quiet particular to people who have just understood something about themselves they cannot yet name. She took a car home alone. Marcus stayed another hour. He stood near the bar and watched Camille move through the room, easy, unhurried, entirely at home, and tried to locate the exact moment he had misread her. He could not find it. Because it wasn't a moment. It was 6 years of small dismissals. 6 years of nice passion project and you're overcomplicating things and conversations he changed the subject of because her ambition made him feel something he had never had the honesty to examine. He left at 11:30. He did not approach her again. Camille stayed until the end. She had a glass of wine with the foundation director. She exchanged cards with the city planning commissioner. She made 2 phone calls in the corridor to her team, because 2 people who had worked late nights and early mornings with her deserved to hear the news from her directly. She took the award home in its case. She set it on the shelf above her desk. And then she sat for a moment in the quiet of her apartment and felt, not triumph. Not vindication. Not even satisfaction exactly. Something simpler. Like a door she had been standing in front of for a very long time had finally, quietly, opened. She had walked through. The dress was somewhere across the city. The work was here. She turned off the light and went to bed. Some people spend years trying to make themselves seen by the wrong rooms. Camille learned something different, that the right room always finds the person who is ready for it. The question is never whether you will be seen. The question is what you will have built by the time you are.